My miracle story involves me and my granddaughter Erin, who I should tell you right off the front is an Asperger child. She was 16 when the miracle occurred. She's very bright, but she does not read the world as you and I would. Through the years, I have taken her places in public, restaurants, stores, to help socialize her. And one of the places we go often is China Star, because there's a waitress there by the name of Juju Ping, who is the epitome of kindness. When she goes to China, she will bring us back a piece of jewelry. And Erin's hair is what you might call unruly, so her gift is usually a hair clip. And for me, the last time she went, she brought this jade bracelet down, and from China, from Shanghai, and in the beautiful box. And so it was really quite a gift. Erin said when Juju gave her her fortune cookie, which she always does at the end of the meal, Erin looked at me and said, "I hope I get one that says you have no future." Now, why she said that or what her thinking was, I have no idea. But I think Juju heard part of what she said and thought maybe she got a cookie that didn't have a fortune in it. So she walks over and gets another cookie and gives it to her. So then we leave and we're all happy and satisfied and had a good time. And in order to get home, we go up the hill on 87th Street from China Star. And when you get to the rise of the hill, you don't know what's coming on the other side. And one of my firm convictions in my faith belief is that we walk by faith and not by sight, because you never know what's coming over the hill. So as we crested the hill and started down this steep slope toward Knoll, we could kind of peripherally see they were doing some tree work, but it didn't look quite right. And as we kind of got to the bottom of the hill, we heard a really loud crack, and Erin yelped, and I simultaneously was aware that the top of the tree was moving. And at that point, it went into slow motion. I knew the tree was falling, but it was falling, in my mind, it was falling in slow motion. And I also knew in that moment, in that extended slow motion moment, that it probably would be our last moment. And as the miracle unfolded, the tree fell about a car length ahead of us into the street. And so the tree men ran out there real quick and put a chain around the big trunk of it and yanked it out of the way. We calmly drove on. We were not afraid. We were peaceful. We knew that we had received a miracle. When I told my neighbor that, she said, "That waitress saved your life." And so the next time we went to China Star, we told Juju Ping that she had saved our life, and she said, "Well, it's complicated." She said it was the jade. Jade is for protection. I feel that God was holding us in his hand, but this woman was helping him. And then when I told my hairdresser about the miracle, he said, "Well, I think it was a miracle for the tree trimmers, because they would have been charged with negligent homicide or something very serious, because they had not taken any safety precautions for the tree falling in the street." And so that was kind of interesting, because each person you tell that to adds a dimension to the story. And in a way, it becomes their story. We both read the world differently since that happened, and Erin has learned to be careful what she wishes for.
Hi, I'm I'm Elizabeth Wallace. My parents, Sally and Dara Wallace, moved to the Kansas City area, and we joined Village Church when I was about 8 years old, so been here all my life. I taught high school for 10 years at Shawnee Mission East, and I really enjoyed being a teacher, but after 10 years, I wasn't married and loved to travel, and thought about taking some time away from teaching and trying a different career, thinking that was a good time to explore other possibilities and that I could always come back to teaching. And so I set up I had an interview with a company that sold products to nursing schools. And the night before the interview, I just had kind of butterflies in my stomach and just couldn't sleep and thought, what am I doing? I'm a really good teacher. I get a lot of kudos for it. I really enjoy it. Why would I even think to leave and try something that I don't even know if I'm going to be good at? So the next morning I was reluctantly getting dressed and again thinking, I don't know why I did this. Should just stay with what's familiar and what I know. And I just gotten out of the shower, and I had a extremely close relationship with my grandmother, my mother's mother, and spent my summers and spring breaks in Los Angeles with her. And she didn't come very often to visit us, but whenever I saw her, she had this perfume that she always wore the same perfume, and it was kind of a stronger scent, and it totally reminded me when I would smell it of her. And even as a child, I loved my grandmother so much that on the few occasions she would come to visit, when she would leave, I would actually go into the closet of the guest room just to take in that smell of perfume, because I was always so sad that she was gone, and it was just a lingering for a few days remembrance of my good times with her. So I was getting dressed and just had stepped out of the shower, and it was kind of a rainy day, and the window was open a little bit, and all of a sudden I had this sensation of the smell of my grandmother's perfume. And I remember kind of dismissing it as thinking, gosh, normally I don't take this much care in getting ready, but because I'm doing an interview, maybe I put on a lotion or something that smelled like it. And the smell went away right away, and I smelled, and I could not smell the smell at all. And right then, for a second time, just as strong as being a child and going into that closet was that perfume, this perfume that I had only ever smelled on my grandmother. And again, I thought, this is really odd. And I remember kind of in my mind comically thinking, is this my grandma? But again, dismissing it, because that's ridiculous. Unfortunately, my grandmother had passed away 3 years prior of pancreatic cancer. And literally when I said to myself, this is ridiculous, third time, just as strong as, there was no denying. Even though I couldn't explain it, even though I knew everyone would think I was crazy, there was no denying the presence of my grandmother in that bathroom with me in this house that I lived in all by myself. And I took it to mean, it's okay. Go for this interview. You're doing the right thing. And in the end, I did get the job and ended up with an 8-year career that I loved and was highly successful at and had a lot of great opportunities. And to this day, I just know that was a miracle. That was God giving me the presence of my grandmother, that I had not sensed her presence since the day she had passed away. But at that critical moment, I knew that it was going to be okay.
My name is Barbara Heiss, and this is the miracle of my life. It happened 68 years ago, just about this time of year. I was 8 years old. On my 8th birthday, which was August of 1945, World War II ended. And that's a significant part of my story, because right after Christmas in 1945, I became very, very, very ill. My parents were new to the city. They had no idea what was the matter with me. So they looked and called a random doctor who came to the house and said, oh, she just has flu, she'll be better. Well, I wasn't better. I got worse and worse and worse. Very, very ill. So my parents decided that, I think they talked to the doctor about it, and he said, well, why don't you take her to the contagious part of General Hospital called the isolation ward in downtown Kansas City. So they sent an ambulance, took me to the hospital. That experience was grim. So I got to the hospital, and it was a teaching hospital. And Dr. Carl Ferris called in his students, and they looked me over and decided that what I needed to figure out what was the matter with me was a spinal tap. So they gave me a spinal tap. And yes, in fact, I did have influenzal bacterial meningitis. And the only thing to treat me with was sulfa. And I just kept getting sicker and sicker. And I would be in and out of comas, high fever, in and out of consciousness. And the miracle that happened, it feels to me like I was almost floating above the room. I could see my mom and dad and the physicians in their white masks and robes. Everybody was scared because it was so contagious. And the doctor saying, she's not going to live. We cannot save her life. Sulfa is not working. I could hear this. And I was sort of in this white space thinking, oh, yes, I will live. I will. I'm going to live. But anyway, they kept talking, and the doctor said, we have a new drug. I know nothing about it. I've never used it. We used it on the troops during the war. But since the war's over, we have a little bit of it available. And it would be a long shot, but we could try it on her and see if it makes a difference. So I was given penicillin, and Dr. Carl Ferris called me his miracle every time I saw him for the rest of his life, because obviously I survived. I've since done some research, and there were some people with other things that were cured with penicillin. But I was always led to believe I was the very first person ever cured of meningitis with penicillin. I'm totally deaf in my left ear. Thank you, God. For many, many years, I didn't think I would live. I just sort of assumed a fear from that whole experience. I'm sure that my life was, I'd never make it to high school, I'd never make it to college. So then I began to ask myself, you know, what am I supposed to do with my life? And it's been very, very, very important to me to, in my own way, give back. So I went back to college in my 40s, and I do counseling now, and my people I work with tell me that I help them a lot. I had a lady in the other day that said, I hope you never retire. So I've always looked, you know, for ways not only professionally but personally, through volunteerism, through worship, through meditation, through prayer, to remain close, very close to God, and to do something to help spread His word and His love for all of we human beings.